Hello and welcome to NextOppSocial. We are your hosts, Richelle Wright and Joanne Buford. We believe entrepreneurship is empowerment, and we are committed to the development and progress of entrepreneurs, providing you with the information you need to build thriving businesses. Today, we are very pleased to welcome Lanasia Angelina, certified life coach and NLP practitioner who helps ambitious professionals reach beyond their current levels of achievement in order to access the next level within their lives. So, welcome, Lanasia. We're very excited to have you here at Next Up Social. And let's dive in. Tell us about
I'm
yourself.
excited to be here.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Let's hear about your background, how you got started with entrepreneurship.
Okay, wow. How did I get started with entrepreneurship? It wasn't by choice. Uh, but I am from Detroit, born and raised from the east side of Detroit. I went to Detroit schools all of my life, except for high school. I went to like charter high schools, charter publics, and the burbs. But I have always had a passion for people. Honestly, I kind of got my start in entrepreneurship in the nonprofit sector. I started my own nonprofit at the age of 23, and that work was actually sparked when I came home from school. And I've always been a super motivated person. I'm like, okay, I'm going to school part time, and I'm working part time, and I'm bored. I need something else to do. So I started volunteer work. With the Boys and Girls Clubs, and from there, it sparked my just passion for wanting to continue that work, not just as a volunteer helping the girls with dance, but also wanting to help them get their minds right, really see themselves, boost their self-esteem. So that's what birthed the Pretty Girl campaign. And I got into that work at the age of 23. After 4 years of volunteer, I started my own organization. We had about 5 dozen mentors, and we served over 2,000 girls. During that time, we had partnerships with Boys and Girls Clubs of Southeastern Michigan, DPS high schools. And although it was nonprofit, much of it, I was the visionary. I was the one who was the leader of the organization, who had to come up with the ideas, who had to secure the partnerships. So that was my first that was the first time I dipped my toes in the pond as an entrepreneur. And from there actually evolved. It evolved into not just working with young girls, but working with their parents. A lot of the parents were coming to me saying, I see what you're doing. And, I also need support. Or people would come to me and say, I see what you're doing. I see what you've been able to produce within your organization. How do I do that also? And I thought that I was going to be a business coach. I was like, yeah, I can help you start your 501c3. Let's do it. And what I realized was the thing about your truth is that no matter what opportunity you're presented with, you will always find yourself doing what's most authentic for you. So even though people were coming to me saying they wanted a 501c3 and they wanted to learn how to start an organization and operate a business, I was finding as I was listening to these people that wasn't their problem. The limitation wasn't that they didn't know how to operate a business. It was that they didn't believe in themselves. Mm-hmm. So, in finding that, I started to essentially coach. I was coaching them because that's what I was doing as a mentor. I was helping young ladies to develop self-esteem. And I found that many people that wanted to start a business, the problem was not that they didn't have the business acumen, but that they didn't have the self-esteem. Mm-hmm. So I was coaching them in that way, and I didn't know anything about coaching. And someone presented that opportunity to me in 2017. She's like, you're a coach. I'm like, well, what's a coach? Tell me more. And we talked about it, and I was like, I am a coach. I think that's fitting.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up on this path of helping people to really see themselves, identify their limitations, because that's really where the only problem exists. And once you recognize that the problem exists within you, then you also understand that the solution is also there. So if I am the problem, then I'm also the solution. So every circumstance, every problem, quote unquote, in my life can be solved. So here we are.
Nice.
I hope I answered your question correctly. I'm a little long-winded, but
no, you're fine.
No, you crushed it. I love that. If I am the problem, I am also the solution.
Yeah, I wrote that down
yes,
too.
Bob Proctor. It's one of my favorite quotes.
I love it. I love it. And for me, one of the reasons why I was really looking forward to this is I gathered in that short exchange that we had right away. I was like, this is a very personally developed person. Like, you had a certain type of confidence, a certain easy way of being that immediately caught my attention. I was like, I got to learn more about her. And then once I learned about the work that you're doing, particularly that internal work, there's a quote out there, I can't remember who to attribute it to, but they say success is an inside job. And very few people give it a lot of lip service, but very few people actually do a deep dive, right? And I was like, okay, so this is powerful. This is something that's valuable, right? I know she's out there doing the deal. When I had an opportunity to take inventory of your content and take inventory of your site, the way you've organized yourself, I think you sell yourself short, quite frankly, but we'll get into that here in a moment. But the one part of it that really caught my attention was when we were conversing about a transition that you made. So you started out this business, and this is what a lot of people run into. You start out the business consulting business, but you're kind of unsure. You're unsure of how valuable you actually are. You're unsure of what the marketplace can afford. You're unsure about a lot of different things. And you went through that period. Like, you were charging bargain basement prices.
below bargain basement.
Yeah. And then you had this situation that's awakening, if you will, where you finally begin to price yourself right, right? Talk about that. 'Cause I know a lot of consultants, I know a lot of coaches have a huge issue. They have a huge connection with this process. What did that look like for you?
I love that you brought that up, because I think it's a message that needs to be spread. Because what happens when we are devaluing ourselves, not even knowing, because we haven't done, number one, what I would say is do your research on the market. That's one thing I did not do. I didn't do market research. I was just like throwing numbers out there and completely devaluing myself. And what that did was, number one, it was attracting clients that were not necessarily aligned with my mission and my vision and what I wanted to do. So it became more difficult to get my clients to the goal. In addition to that, and they were seeing results, but it was just that long-term sustainable change. We needed them more invested. If they have more skin in the game, if they're more invested, then they're more committed to their process. I've learned that over time in this kind of work. But also what it does is it makes you feel like you're kind of spinning your wheels. You start to lose sight of the vision, the purpose, the plan, because oftentimes when you are devaluing yourself in that work, you're having to do other things to bring in income. You can't sustain yourself. So now you can't really even be fully immersed in the experience and grow and, really cultivate, the gift that you have, because your attention is so divided. So it affects you in that way as well. And I'm sorry, what was your question again?
So I know you had this moment where you came to these realizations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there. I know Shelley's been there. Anyone that does any type of business consulting, you realize, look, I'm attracting the wrong type of people.
Yes.
And a lot of this has to do with, it's not just simply marketing. It's not just simply branding. Sometimes it's just your own expectations of yourself and who you choose to work with, right?
Yeah.
That will impact your business more than anything else. So you're coming to these realizations, and then you go from bargain basement to, all right, this is what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to charge this amount. What did that process look like? What steps did you take?
Well, the first step was, I'm never going to be able to sustain myself. It was like, this is because I would have these goals of what I wanted to make, what I wanted to earn as far as revenue goes. And then I would look at what I was charging myself and realistically the amount of clients that I would have to bring in to really make that happen. And I was really playing myself when I really wrote those numbers down. I was like, are you serious, girl? Like, there's no way you're going to work with 30 people a month. It's just not realistic. It's not realistic for you. It's not scalable. Like, you imagine 30 clients a month would have to, like, I'd have to be reaching out to like 300,000 people a month, touching that. Like, it's conversion is, percentage is very, very low.
Yeah.
So I had to really get real about what my goals were and what I was charging and the kind of work that I was doing. And was it really realistic? And it wasn't. It wasn't realistic. It wasn't attainable. So I had to trash that whole structure that I had, that whole business model that I had, and recreate something that would actually sustain me, that was realistic. That was the first step.
Yeah.
And then also, as I started to grow and, and really become better in my craft, I realized that there were people willing to pay even more than that second tier that I had gotten to. And what I found working with those people is that I was so happy. When it was time to get on the phone with them, I was so happy. And mind you, I mean, they're paying up front, a lot of them. So it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about, because the money's basically already paid. So it's not like a huge deal of like, oh, cool, I'm doing this because of the money coming in. That money's already paid, and allotted to different areas. But it's just the fact that I was excited to work with them because they were excited about their change. They were excited about their growth. They knew what they had invested in themselves, and they invested this because they saw that value. So every time they showed up, even if it was a challenging session, they were ready to push past those challenges because they're like, I got a lot riding on this. I want to see the results. So it's just a completely different experience. And once I was able to experience, once I was able to experience that shift in just what the experience felt like, I was like, there's no way I could ever charge anything less than this price point, because not only do I feel excited, and when I'm excited, I'm more effective. When they're excited, they're getting better results. So that was really like me being able to experience that was the shift. And granted, the volume was lower, but the impact was greater. And that is what I wanted to see. And that helped to restore, that started to rebuild my confidence. Like, wow, this actually does work. When people are paying $35 an hour, you're like, does this really work? You're questioning yourself. But it's just the fact that they're like, $35 means nothing to them. So they're not committing to the work that we're supposed to be putting in. They're not committed because it doesn't mean enough to them. They have to feel the transaction. One of my clients actually told me this. They have to feel the transaction.
Yeah. So just to clarify for anyone who's watching or listening, because there's a lot of different words, right? There's coaching, there's consulting, there's therapy, right? And in terms of life stuff. So tell us what you do, what is life coaching, and what does kind of like your process look like?
This is my favorite question. Rochelle, is it?
Richelli.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank
wow.
you.
Exceed my expectations. So, Miss Richelli. So I'm so glad that you asked that question, because people often use those words interchangeably because they seem like very similar fields of work, which they are. There are some consulting elements in the coaching experience. There are some therapy elements in the coaching experience. But the main differences that I like to outline between coaching, consulting, and therapy is this. Therapy is looking back. coaching is looking forward. Therapy is often about processing emotions. There's not really action plans implemented into therapy sessions. And the focus of coaching is to identify where you are. We may glimpse back, but we don't stay there. That's not what I'm educated to do. Like that's not what I do. So we may glimpse back just to get an understanding of what has shaped you to believe the way you believe. And then we identify ways to get you moving forward, and not just moving forward, but on a long-term, we want to create that long-term sustainable change. So we understand how you think, we understand where you are, and then we get you moving forward. And the difference between coaching and consulting is often, this is the way that it's done. This is how you will get the results. This is what you do because I am the expert.
Mm-hmm.
In coaching, my philosophy is that I cannot be brilliant. When I enter all of my coaching experiences, I have to trust that my client knows what's best for them. I essentially serve as the navigation guide. There is very little advice happening in the coaching experience. I usually give advice. I don't even give advice in every session. And often when it is advice, it's often a growth challenge that they're going to implement so that they can start to practice a new way of doing things for themselves. So it's still not advice, but there's not much advice. Consulting is advice. I am advising you to do something because this is the way that it works, because I'm the expert. These are the results that I got, and you want these results, so do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching is, this is your life. I can't tell you what's best for you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to understand your blind spots. I'm listening to the conversation under the conversation. I am listening to the limitations that are coming out of your mouth. And that's where the neurolinguistic programming comes in, because I'm skilled to listen to language in a different way. I communicate differently. So often when people are listening to what the person's saying, my job is to listen to everything you're not saying.
Right.
People often speak out of limitation and they don't even realize it. It doesn't always show up as I can't do this. It doesn't always show up as I'm not good enough. That's the conversation that they're not having. And until they have that, they're going to remain in the cycle. So what I do is I point out that you're actually saying you don't deserve this. You're actually saying you're not good enough. You're not qualified. You're not ready. So once we address that, then you can create change. Because what most people are doing is they're trying to put a Band-Aid on the surface level problem, and the Band-Aid falls off and the problem persists. But it's kind of like what an analogy I often use is like plucking the weeds, and then you pluck it before work, you get home and it's there again. You're like, oh, like I'm going crazy. But if you get that weed killer, it gets to the root, and all of a sudden the problem no longer exists.
Perfect. So it's two things that caught my attention. You already know I'm always looking at process, right?
Okay.
It's the part of the business I get excited about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the two things that also caught my attention as I was listening to you and kind of going through your system, if you will, was that you spent some time, effort, and energy curating your online presence. You spent some energy and time putting your process in place. Like, I was very impressed by that. Oftentimes, like I said before, I say this time and time again, you have individuals out here, they watch one YouTube video, they read one book, they put together a pamphlet, and now they're out here entrepreneuring, right? Dispensing advice and guidance. It's like, for real. Man, but I was impressed by what I saw there. And then, look, a lot of times in business, you'll have individuals who are highly skilled, highly effective at what they do, but they don't know how to get the word out, right? They haven't figured out how to generate that volume and that attention. What does Grant Cardone say? The enemy is actually obscurity, right?
100, yes.
The enemy is obscurity.
Yep.
So to me, it was obvious you had solved that obscurity problem right out the gate. And then you also were very effective at putting systems in place. And then, of course, the next level of development, which I don't think you give yourself enough credit for, is putting together a team. Like, you didn't go out there and just assemble some randoms. You put together a highly skilled team. Talk about that a little bit. I want to hear some of that.
Well, you are absolutely right about the enemy being obscurity. Yes, he definitely in 10X he says that, and he talks about how, you know, the number one problem for most small businesses is visibility.
Yes.
And I still face that. I mean, because you get to a level, and one thing about entrepreneurship, I think it's Colin Powell that says, if, you know, the day that you wake up and you don't have problems up to your butt, then you're no longer leading. And every day there's a problem. And the biggest problem that I find is every time I reach a level of visibility, of awareness of the work, it's like, okay, got to get to the next level of raising awareness, you know, to spread the word about the work that we do, because there's like so many walls, so many plateaus. So I think that that's something I have not mastered yet. I am working on it daily, failing my way to success in that aspect. But developing a team, I will say that that is one of my strong suits. I have always had, what I will say I use to my advantage is my charisma. Many of my clients often, when I'm asking for, like, I had to switch up my survey because people, you know, I had to get very specific about what I wanted people to put on the coaching experience survey about the results, because they would all say, I love Lanasia,
Right.
she's so great. And I'm like, okay, that's nice, but like, I need you to put like something tangible to But I use my charisma to my advantage, my genuine love for people to my advantage, and that makes people, and also I think that I have this way of getting people to see the vision. I did that with the Pretty Girl campaign, having 64 mentors on the team, being able to develop these partnerships. And I've done that with my current team and with the new coaches that are coming in, you know, helping people to just, even though it's not all here in our reality, we can't hold it all in our hands yet. I think I do a really good job at helping people to see the vision and not want to follow me. I always keep things focused on the vision, because if you can believe in that vision, that mission, then you have something to be motivated about, to be enthusiastic about because the thing about it is when you're working towards a vision, you can see yourself in it. But when you're working for me, you just see me. So one thing that's really helped me to develop a team is that I get them to trust in the vision always. When things are, you know, in entrepreneurship, things are, you know, roller coaster, I always redirect them back to the vision. So that's what's really helped me as a leader. And I'm a very hard driver, and also being an embodiment of my work. If I want my team to be consistent, I have to lead by example. I'm always leading by example and serving. One thing that works to my benefit also is when I think about the goals and the vision and the days that I'm tired or exhausted, I think about the people that believe in me and how I can't let them down. So they're essentially like accountability partners in my mind, because I got these people that believe that I'm the one to get them to the goal. And if they believe that, then I have to get up every day, because it's not even about just me or the people I serve. It's even if it's the people I serve, I can take a couple months off. It's like, I'll get to you guys. Even though they need me, but my team is expecting me to be there to guide them every single day. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you answered quite a bit of it. I'm still, you know, I want to do a deeper dive here, though. I want to get a little bit more out of you. So I've seen people go real hard on social media. They're posting 24/7 around the clock, right? I've seen individuals use press releases and do vlogs and things like that, right? I've seen all these different approaches. And I know different approaches work for different people based on circumstance, skill set, your circle, et cetera, et cetera. What processes work the best for you in terms of attracting the type of clients that you're taking aim at? Because a lot of people, you already know where I'm going with this. is like a shotgun. They just spray out everything, right? And hopefully land something. But no, I can tell there's precision to what you do. What does your process look like?
It's funny. It's so funny that you say that. So I'll tell you a story. I'll be short. 2020, I was on a bike ride. I used to go on these super long bike rides, like 20 miles. I'm on a bike ride and I have a very close connection with God. You know, I talk to God a lot. Sometimes when I want to talk to him, he'll just talk to me. And I'm like, I'm not trying to hear that right now. So I'm on this bike ride and the Holy Spirit speaks to me and says, when did you start caring so much about what people think about you? And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? Who are you talking to? I'm just trying to ride my bike. Okay. I'm not trying to be having a deep conversation with you right now. And I was instructed to stop posting to start posting to give, right? And without question, I just started tweeting. I started sharing more of my words and less of my photos. So if you've been to my social media, you'll see it's a lot less photos in the past year because I was just sharing, motivating, you know, challenging people's perspectives with what was in my mind. I was just sharing what was in my mind. That transformed my business. And so something so casual, I wasn't even trying. Now I'm very strategic about it, but I was not even trying. And it totally transformed my business. Another thing that transformed my business was asking the question. I don't know if you know about my Do I Even Need a Coach campaign, but asking the question. I thought one day, my work is asking people questions to empower them to find their own answers. So instead of telling people what they need, I can ask them, do you even need a coach? And that sparked so much interest. People were like, man, do I? Like, it got people asking themselves, do I need a coach? And that totally transformed my business. So the things that have worked for me is really being my most authentic self, giving more, serving more, and just really wanting to make an impact, like wanting to truly make an impact. But as far as social media goes and the strategy that I use, it's really touching on people's pain points, connecting with what matters to them. I do monitor now, like what people connect with most. And it's funny when I post like the nice, you know, free yourself, when I post those kinds of things, they're like, okay, it's cool. But when I'm like, you know, pointing the finger and, you know, this is why your life's not changing, people are like, yes. So people, because that resonates with people, because it's I'm the voice that is inside of them. And they're like, oh my gosh, she's talking to me. I'm that person. So definitely using my voice more, sharing videos, sharing, I don't know if you've seen like my IGTVs and stuff, but videos and, you know, posts and just encouraging people, but not just encouraging people. I always say, because a lot of people think I'm a motivational speaker and I'm not. I want you to have a different perspective when you leave a conversation with me. I am a transformational speaker. When you speak with me, when you have a conversation with me, I want you to be empowered to create a change within your life.
It's fascinating that you shared that, right? I am a public speaker, but I don't like the title motivational speaker because I've always felt like motivation is an outside game, right? And if you're reliant upon motivation, you're gonna be in trouble. You got to be inspired by what's going on internally. You gotta have an internal well, an internal compass. You got to find ways to pull from that well. That's where your power is at. If it's in motivation, you'll end up buying somebody else's agenda if you're not careful.
100%.
Right? Yeah, I love the fact that you create that clear delineation between the two. Now, something I thought is also interesting is, look, I know it's not necessarily quote unquote about the money, right? But let's be real. When you got that first real deposit, when you changed your price point and that deposit hit your account, you can't tell me you didn't have a brief exclamation like, "Oh my gosh, this is working." Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. It's kind of like that confirmation, like,
yeah,
people, it's more for me. It wasn't even about the money. It was about it was like that reaffirming of like, man, people do believe in this work. People do believe that I am capable. People do trust me. People do see enough value in themselves to invest this kind of money. So
yeah,
that's really what it was. I saw even further, you know what I'm saying, ahead. It was like, yes, this is cool, but it was more of like affirming me to say, you are on the right track.
yes. Now, I know you've been W-2. You got this transition point where you're saying, you know what, I'm going to go more towards 1099, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things I look for when someone's making a transition is whether or not they're getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And what really caught my attention, yeah, there it is, right? When you logged in and you were on 10, and then you said you were just wrapping up a meeting. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
so I know she's been up at 5 because she had prepared for that meeting, get her
Or
hair,
30.
yep, and then get ready for this, right?
Yes, I had to go to the gym. I go to
Yeah,
the gym every day. So
yeah, you got to make time. Look, you don't make time, you prioritize things, right?
that's it.
Something you said earlier caught my attention about this process that you go through. And that had to have been a process, right? What I oftentimes find with consultants, coaches, et cetera, is they're actually not even, in our industry, we say be a product of the product, right? Be a product of the product. You can't talk constructively with enthusiasm and belief and confidence about it unless you're a product of the product.
Yeah.
And listening to you this morning was like confirmation of like from the first 10 seconds and that came out your mouth. I said, okay, she's for real. I ain't got to worry about her no more. But I know that was a process too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But developing that entrepreneurial muscle. Like I hear you started developing it early on in the nonprofit sector, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going and transitioning from doing that nonprofit work to actually being a consultant, I know there had to be some type of evolution that transpired in you too.
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, it was the biggest transition was going from getting grants and fundraising to asking people for their money.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big transition, because it became kind of more of a hustle. It was more of a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to say, okay, charging per session is not scalable. We're going to stop that. We stopped that very early on. But one thing that's interesting that you said is the process. And people often say the process, right? And one thing that I always like to stress is that I don't like to use the word the process often, like the phrase the process. And when I do, I like to make it very clear that the process is just a summation of a whole lot of decisions. So when, because people sometimes I feel lean on the process because it's such an abstract kind of lucid thing. It's like the process. Oh, I'm just being patient in the process. Or it's like, okay, but what decisions are you making every single day to make sure that your process adds up to something worthwhile? Don't just lean into this vague idea of the process so that you can use it as an excuse for not getting things done. I like to break it down to, I decide every single day. So don't think that I decided on Sunday that I was going to go to the gym and then I just woke up excited every day. I was like, it's happening. It does not work that way. I decide every day that this is what's going to happen. So that process looks like those daily decisions. And I always like to clarify that for people so that they can understand. Don't think that your process is do it on Monday, do it in 3 weeks, and then you'll see some results because it's the process. No, it's the small decisions that you make on a consistent basis. I always say small steps get you to those great distances, small steps to greatness, not the big leaps and bounds, because the big leaps and bounds are only a byproduct of the muscle that you built from the small meticulous steps that you put in every day in the process.
I love it.
When I hear you talking, it's because like I'm as a consultant, I'm familiar with coaching and I'm familiar with like, this area, and I can hear you using your process for yourself that I'm sure you're going through with your clients as well too. But maybe just outline for us a little bit, or even asking that question, like, do you need a coach, right? Of what makes working with your business unique and different? Because we hear this term life coach, it's big, right? It's big.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who might give themselves that title or phrase that maybe not appropriately so.
100%, especially with it being a non-regulated industry.
Yeah.
People do not train, people do not get certified, people do not educate themselves, they do not invest in training. And that is like huge for me because these are people's lives. So the number one thing that makes my agency the one that you may want to work with is because we have continuous education. We are training every single week and perfecting our craft so that we can understand human behavior, so that we can understand how to create long-term transformational change, so that we can understand all of the series of questions that get people to uncover their truth. There's actually my framework that I use within my agency. We're RISE Coaching. So I use RISE as the acronym, which is Realization, Intention, Strategy, Execution. That's the framework that we use. So realization is number one, implementing a lot of that neurolinguistic programming practice into that part, because we're uncovering what the client doesn't even understand our limitations. We're listening to what the client is not saying, helping them to uncover what their truth is. And what that realization does is it shifts their paradigms, because the subconscious mind dictates 95% of our decision making. And the number one problem is that people don't have a relationship with the subconscious. They have very minimal awareness. So if you are not aware of the very emotional part of your brain that is dictating all of your decisions, then you are essentially not in control of your life. So what we do in that realization stage is we help them to gain a greater sense of awareness so that they can start to cultivate that healthier relationship with the subconscious and regain that control. Intention shifts their pathway. That helps them to start to focus in a new direction. So after we realize what the problem is, we start to set our intentions on the life that we want to create, the things that we want to produce within our lives, the way that we want to feel, because where the focus goes, the energy flows, right? So after realizing what the problem is, we set our intentions on what the solution is. And then the third part of the framework is strategy, and that's shifting the process. So realization, intention, strategy, execution. The strategy portion is where we begin to get very practical. That's where we start to implement things that actually can help you to transform your trajectory. So we talk about changing the trajectory. That happens with action. So we realize it, shift the paradigm, set new intentions, shift the pathway, create a new strategy, shift the process, and then execution helps you to create that long-term sustainable change. Execution is that small steps to greatness stage, that constantly doing it over and over again. Joe Dispenza, who is one of my favorite mindset coaches, says that you don't come to a place where you create this new world inside of your mind and it stays that way. You have to constantly overcome the limitations of your mind, because we are being fed, our subconscious mind is processing right now things that I'm not even focused on. Right. So it's very important that I have that awareness, realization, set new intentions, shift that pathway, develop a new strategy, or make sure that there are strategies in place to support me, even if it's not a new one. There's a plan of action. I actually have something that I use within my work. I call it the exit strategy. You think about buildings all have these fire exit plans because it's life or death, right? So you're prepared to get out if in case of a fire. And that's how you have to feel in your life. If I am in a mental state that I don't want to be in, I should have a plan of action. I need an exit strategy on what to get out of this state, because it is life or death. It is life or death. So yeah, I hope that helps to kind of outline what my work looks like: realization, intention, strategy, and execution. And also those stages don't always happen in the same order. Oftentimes we'll have 5 realizations on one call. Sometimes we won't get to the process, the strategy, until our 4th or 5th session. It just all depends, but that's the framework.
Perfect.
So what are some misconceptions that individuals have about the nature of the work that you do and the value of the work that you do? What are some errors that you see even other individuals in the industry make regarding the nature of the work that you do? What mistakes are people making?
Advice. I cannot stress this enough. Advice is so limiting. If I am giving you advice, I am saying to you that the way that I view my world and the way that I view myself is the same way that you view your world and the same way you see yourself. So limiting. Every person that you meet is having their own individual experience, and we don't give people that credit to honor the fact that they're having an experience. And I'm going to ask you questions to understand your experience. And that's how we create intimacy. That's how we get to really, truly connect with people. Most people aren't connecting because they're not going inward. They're not asking questions. We're just talking at each other. You're sharing things, I'm sharing things, you're sharing things, I'm sharing things. We're not really getting to know one another. And that leads me to assumptive communication. So advice for sure, because it's very limiting, and assumptive communication is also the same, very similar to that advice. You're not asking questions. You're just assuming that I understand what you understand. And now there's this conflict, or you give me advice and you assume that it's going to work for me, and it does for a day. But my goal, the success of my work is that you don't need me anymore. The success of my work is that we have shifted the beliefs that have limited you. You have set your own intentions. You have implemented your own new processes and executed them on a long-term basis so that they can shift your personal progress. But if I give you advice, you're going to be working with me forever. And I guess that would work for me financially. But my goal is not for you to be here forever. It's for you to create a new world inside of your mind so that you can trust your own decision making.
That's amazing.
I love it.
So we're getting towards the end. We have a couple questions we always ask our guests before we wrap up. So the first one is, if you could pinpoint, what would be your superpower?
Oh my gosh. You have put me on the spot. What would be my superpower? I would say, so Rise is not just the name of my company. It is my testimony. I always get back up. Like, it's not even a thought in my mind. I face so many challenges, and bouncing back is just like my second nature response. It's never a doubt in my mind. It's never a thought in my, like, giving up, retreating. It's not even, I don't have to fight that option because I just don't want it. I naturally don't respond in that way. I just always rise.
Amazing. And you gave us a lot of really important lessons today, but if there is one very important lesson that you'd like to leave our listening audience with regarding entrepreneurship, what would that be?
Don't quit in the middle.
Mm.
Don't quit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
The middle gets thick. and also there's a lot of middles.
Right.
Don't quit in the middle. And also another thing, like trust, like, I don't know, like have faith. You got to have faith, because that's really what that journey is. As entrepreneurs, we're creators. We're creating something oftentimes for the first time. What I do is very unique. No one is growing a global coaching agency, and I just have to have faith that it's possible for me.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, I have so much advice. Okay, another piece of advice is have a routine.
Mm-hmm.
Have a solid, like, I think it's Zig Ziglar maybe that says success is in the DNA of your routine. I mean, the DNA of your success is in your routine. Like, you must have some motion, some flow going in your life that keeps you like maintaining the positive energy, attitude, and like that success is a culture. So you have to have a successful routine. Like, I have a very successful routine for my mornings. I have a very successful routine at night. I even stop and meditate in the middle of my day. And those things are extremely important for my success.
Perfect. Lanasia, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you if they want to reach out, learn more about Rise, talk with you more?
Yes, so you can visit my personal site, LanasiaAngelina.com. You can visit my business site is also linked there, Rise Coaching Agency. I am also the author of the Balance book, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, and follow me on social media, okay? That's where I'm gonna get talking to you every single day. Lanasia Angelina, please follow me, connect with me, say hi. I love people. I would love to spread the word even more about my work. If you would like me to, join you on the podcast, more conversation. I appreciate you two so much gratitude for having me on this morning. I really just appreciate your energy, your spirit. I'm glad that y'all early birds because I'm up.
Yeah, we're feeding off of you. We definitely appreciate it as well. Yeah, thank you, Lanasia, for joining us here again today. For those of you listening, we'll make sure to put those links that she mentioned to connect with her in the show notes here, and so that you can connect with her further. And then, just so people know, we will continue this conversation inside the NextOppSocial After Show Facebook group. Anyone watching, we invite you to join us there. It is in our description as well. Or you can go to Facebook, head to our NextOppSocial page, click community. We'll be happy to have you inside. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button here on YouTube or visit our website at nextoppsocial.com to learn more about everything we do. And if you love today's episode with Lanasia, please share it with someone else who can gain value from this as well and may need to ask, do I need a coach? Right?
Yes.
Thank you so much. We look forward to having you back because we absolutely have to. And have a great day.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye.